I accidentally bought 50,000 shares of Snap. Holy shit, what do I do? So this past week, I decided to record not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 full days of live trading for you. So an entire week, Monday through Friday, open to close. But I'm not going to make you sit through the 30 plus hours of footage I got. So I'll focus on the highlights and fast forward everything outside of that. Also, by the end of it, if you enjoyed it, got something out of it, please make sure to hit that like button. Let's get into it. Alright, game time. Let's get to work. So I use the 1, 2, 5, 15 minute and the hourly for my intraday time frames. And I like to keep it very simple. The only indicators I use is the 20 period moving average, which is the blue line, and the 200 moving average, which is the orange line. And you're going to see me try some scalps here and there throughout the video, but the first real trade for me was this XCLA. It was one of the penny stocks getting some volatility, doing a ton of volume. So I was focusing on the price action on this one off the level 2. It also had a buy setup off the 1 minute. One thing I didn't like about it was the spot on the daily chart. It was into resistance, into that declining 20. It ended up triggering, but ended up killing it early because the level 2 didn't look good and actually ended up failing on the buy setup. So good exit. The rest of the day ended up being pretty slow. Not much going on. Just ended up scalping a few low price stocks until I came across Apple. Some negative news came out. It started getting sold off. So I was watching it as a climactic play. For these, I like to look for acceleration in price, lots of volume, and signs of exhaustion. So it's a counter trend play, which is not the easiest. It's always better to swim with the current than against it, right? But we get a first sign of reversal off the 1 minute. I get the volume spike. It's extended off the 20. I like the spot off the hourly there, bouncing off that rising 20. And knowing this was a pretty aggressive entry off the smallest time frame, I decided to size this one with half risk. I normally risk $500, so just $250 on this. And for targets, I was looking for that 1 minute 20 MA, back up to that 179 area. Entry was over the 1 minute bars high, stop low of the day. It triggered, got an attempt on the bounce, and ended up failing for a full stop, but with half risk. The rest of the day was pretty quiet, not much going on, so unfortunately couldn't get anything going on day 1. Alright, so day 2, first real trade was this BBIG as a scalp. Was not available on TOS, so got some on E-Trade. It wasn't really trending, but it felt like it wanted to break that dollar mark today. Usually you want to see some momentum. 20 MA was still flat on the hourly, so not the best quality here. Pretty stacked level 2, but it actually ended up flipping on me, having to kill the position for a loss. Then towards the end of the morning, I came across a breakdown setup on NVTA. Decent gap today, breaking that transition attempt on the daily, basing nicely off the intraday right at support. So once it breaks, we should get some follow through. So the entry for me was 235, stop at 240. It was a bit tough to get filled on because it was on an uptick, and the level 2 got interesting as it broke. So I did try to add to it as it was coming in. It did keep me on my toes though, because it did trigger into lunch, which I'm not a fan of getting into new trades during lunch hour, but it ended up taking its time, just stair-stepping lower, and got some nice follow through. I ended up trailing some to the offer, just because the whole way down, it didn't take out the offer once, so just wasn't sure what to expect if it did. There were a few spots where it looked like it was going to flip on me, but actually didn't, so I was getting in and out of partial shares until getting out the entire position down at 226. Then tried scalping it here and there into the close, gave back some, made back some. That's the end of day 2. Heading into the middle of the week, the first real trade was the BKR. It got bought into earnings, and following the gap down, trapping those buyers from the previous day. Broke through some support and had a sell setup on the intraday. Now the setup wasn't that great, but with the higher quality gaps, I'm okay with being a little bit more aggressive on the intraday setups. So what I liked about it was it attempted to pop and immediately got rejected for a little shakeout. So my entry was 24.89, stopped 25.07, and immediately triggered by a few cents, but didn't go anywhere. It's not the best sign when the setup triggers and immediately reverses that move. So a shakeout with a sell set of failure here so far. I could have killed it above that 2 minute bars high, but the move was too quick, so I ended up having to sit on it, and it popped, taking a full loss on this trade. Next was the SRNE, another climactic play, but this one was moving to the upside. So looking for a short entry here. Entry was under the 2 minute bars low, stop high of the day. And after it triggered, it fell into the 1 minute 20 MA in one drop. So I ended up taking the whole thing for just 1 hour profit there. And good exit because it ended up taking out the highs on the bounce. Then I got involved in the ARVL as a scalp off a breakout, very undersized from incomplete fills. Tried to add to it on the way up, but wasn't able to timely do so on the prices I wanted as it broke. And just a few scalps here and there into the close. Let's go to day 4. So with earnings season heating up, we're starting to see a lot more gaps, and there were a few interesting ones I was watching. First up was AT&T. This was one of the first thing I watched at the open. It reported gapping under the 200 on the daily, pretty much destroying anyone that bought it above that 200 MA this past month. So I actually had the chance to get in under the 1 minute low high, but it was moving quick, and with a slight hesitation, I missed it. So as it bounced and gave a sell setup, I decided to enter under it at 1847, stop over that high at 1857. And I prefer my triggers to be off or close to the 20 MA, but again, with the better gaps, I may just miss out on them. And missing that first setup, I decided to be aggressive on this entry, and a lot of these gaps are going to be pretty far off the 20 at the open. So I gave it a shot, and the setup got even prettier as it based into the 20 MA for a possible add and reduce. But unfortunately, the price action on the level 2 said otherwise, so I ended up lowering the stop to 1850 for a tiny loss. And good exit because it did end up taking out my original stop. And then my next trade was the ALL, which gapped down and got sold off today, broke some support levels on the daily, and room to move lower. One issue with this sell setup was that it wasn't clean. You can clearly see some choppiness on the bounce. It's also down a lot this morning already, meaning it ran a marathon. So is it really ready to run another one for me? So my plan was to trail it tight. Entry was 112.80 with a stop over 114.01. I used the big stop because it had some spread on it. So as it came in, I was looking for ways to add to it because I felt I was undersized, but never really set up. And the 1 minute didn't look good anymore. So I trailed it to the topping tail off that 5, which was break even. And good exit again because it did end up failing. The next trade was the CSX. It was a buy setup off the 5 minute. Nice time frame alignment. This was also an earnings gap, transitioning on the daily and gapping up today over some prior resistance. Entry was 30.96, stop 30.74. Needed to see it break 31 though, the whole number, which it did, with a nice grind up to start the move, but the market was starting to pull back off a rally. So I had to sit through it and wait for a pivot. I get one here, so I raised my stop, and the market stayed a bit weak. The 1 minute, 2 minute, also not looking so hot, so ended up killing the CSX just under break even. And good exit again because it ended up collapsing. The next trades were all scalps. Skill Z was decent, but I missed my exit. And another day where I just couldn't get anything going. But I felt I traded okay today on the management side. But in terms of follow through, a tough week so far. Let's hope to finish strong here on the last day of the week. So I didn't notice I had my drawing tool on the P&L screen, so ignore that for now. I do move it. But my favorite gap today was the snap. It had a run up into earnings on an overall bearish stock, gapping down today under that entire base with void below. So I did it off the 1 minute low high, and I got a really good entry on it. It got close to 2 Rs, so I decided to take half my position off. And what happens next is very unfortunate. So what happened was I had 3,000 shares short, and on the trail, I meant to get out 1,500 shares, so just trying to kill half of my position. But instead, I accidentally bought 50,000 shares of Snap. Holy shit, what do I do? So now I'm long 47,000 shares. I realize what happened, and from my past experience, it's almost always best to just immediately flatten the position. So that's what I did. And thankfully, the damage wasn't too bad. This could have been a total disaster. But, from being up almost 2 Rs to immediately being down 2 Rs is not fun, especially in the first few minutes to start the trading day. And this all happened live while I was on the mic, so it kind of threw me off. And I still managed it for the room, and it actually ended up getting to 5 Rs. So a bit of a costly mistake there, but what's done is done. There's nothing I could do about it. The only thing I can change is what I do next. I still have a full day ahead of me before the weekend, so I know I'm starting the fourth quarter down, but let's take it one position at a time, try to make good choices, and work our way back. right. So just did a bunch of scalps. Snap actually had a decent level 2 on it, so was able to mitigate the loss. I also reached out to TD Ameritrade, told them what happened on Snap. Sometimes with these fat finger trades, if it was an accident with a very unusual amount like 50,000 shares of Snap, there's a small chance they can adjust the trade. But they said they couldn't with the market maker, but gave me $150 to cover some of the loss. It's better than nothing, so I'll take it. So that was my full week of live trading. It was a tough week for me, not a lot of follow through, made some mistakes, couple of slow days, but ended the week up over 6K. Could have been easily over 8 if it wasn't for that Snap mistake, but hoping for a better week on Monday. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button. I mean, who else is showing this much live trading with very clear positions, charts, and PNL? So make sure to subscribe if you want to see more content like this one. As always, I appreciate you for being here, and I hope to see you on the next one.